Well, we can't just let the Philadelphia Eagles steal all the shine this week. The NBA trade deadline now 2 days away. And earlier today, the 76ers made a move, acquiring Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin. Joel Embiid is back. He's in the starting lineup. And before we came on the show, our very own Kyle Neubeck is reporting that while listed as questionable as early as 5:30, KJ Martin out for a month and some change due to his foot injury. Maybe playing tonight against the Dallas Mavericks, is now officially ruled out for tonight's game because trade pending when it comes to the other Martin, formerly in the Philadelphia 76ers uniform. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers. We still have a pregame show and a game tonight. Rich Hoffman, Devon Givens, we're here with you along with Bree, all of you. Our pregame show presented by, as always, Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you do sign up. Ah, man, it is never ordinary at Bet365. No kidding. Well, whatever the moment, this is the moment. It's never ordinary. Rich, man, first, we'll get to our starters a little bit later, let you know what that looks like. We'll get to our Bet365 pregame picks a little bit later. I got to get your thoughts. Got to get, for those who weren't with us for our emergency pod earlier today, we want to get your thoughts on that as well. But, Rich, you start us off, man. Embiid is back. But let's start off with the trade. How surprised were you? And your thoughts on the swap of Martin for Grimes and getting their 2025 second-round pick back as well.
So, Devon, my initial thought was Daryl Morey clearly wanted to win this game tonight. I was like, Quentin Grimes, he's practicing in Philadelphia at shoot-around. He can just go in the other locker room. The man really wants this win in early February. No, I'm just kidding. So, when the trade details emerge, Shams' first tweet, shout out to Shams, by the way. He's been killing it the last few days.
And remember, the first tweet only said Caleb Martin is being traded to Dallas.
And my first thought when I read that tweet was, that's not a guy that I would be looking to trade necessarily. He was low on my list of Sixers trade options. The return better be good. And so my first thought here, Devon, is that this trade is not really about Caleb Martin. I think Caleb Martin is a good player on a good contract. And it was such a good contract in the summer, at least. If you went to our PHLY YouTube page, the top live streaming show until last week when the Eagles won the NFC Championship game was you and Derek doing the emergency pod. I believe it was on that Saturday morning when the Sixers signed Caleb Martin.
We had a good run, Rich.
So Caleb, we at PHLY, we certainly thank you for your service. And look, I think Caleb Martin is a role player who did not get to play his ideal role because the players above him, they just weren't healthy so far this season. And yes, it was painful to watch his 5-part 3-point shot when they were 3-14 in November. Yeah, that was tough. But look, he was super banged up. He never stopped playing hard. And you could tell that his teammates appreciated him, right? I also love that he took on the hardest defensive matchup every single night that he played. There's actually some stats on that too. He had one of the highest opponent usage rates in the league on the players he was guarding, which goes to show you that he was taking on the stars. He was taking on the toughest assignments. So sure, he forgot how to shoot a little bit, but
you give him credit for being out there with that too. Clearly something was up.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, in fairness, the Sixers always acquire guys that forget how to shoot. You know what they don't always acquire? Guys who are specifically good against the Boston Celtics, and it was only one game, but it was a pretty damn good game, man. It was a lot of fun. I was actually bummed he did not play the other night for that specific reason, but it was interesting. So I thought my friend Jake Fisher, who I used to work with,
of the show, Jake,
at Liberty Ballers, had an interesting tweet saying that there was a lot of disagreement around the league about whether Caleb's contract was positive money. In fact, there were a lot of people, Jake said, around the league that viewed it as a negative contract, which I kind of find hard to believe. Not that I don't believe what Jake is reporting. I guess I should say I just disagree with that. I thought Caleb was a good player on a decent contract. Like, wings are the hardest guys in the NBA to find, right? And Caleb had proven that he can play in big games, right? He's not a 1A or even a second option type of wing, but he's a guy who you can throw out there in a playoff series. high stakes basketball, and he's proven that like he can fit in that environment, right? And that's pretty good. So I didn't think for that money, even with his early struggles, that was a bad contract. And look, like he did not get a chance to play that role for the Sixers this year. Outside of the period, I would say right around Christmas, maybe right before till a little after New Year's, when you have all three of those guys in the lineup. I'm not even going to say healthy, just in the lineup and playing. That's when he has the good game against Boston. He had a very nice game at Brooklyn. I believe that was the last game that Joel played. So again, it's not really about Caleb Martin. But I would say two things when I look at this trade. This Sixers team, as constituted, has not earned the benefit of the doubt to be considered a buyer at this point. So while I would not have advocated salary dumping Martin, like you're not just giving him away or selling him for spare parts, I am less concerned about this season because I viewed him as a potential ceiling raiser in the championship. I'm not as concerned about that right now. And the second thing I think is that on a much smaller scale, the Mavericks might have made a win now move for the second time this week.
Yes.
That actually might not have been a win now move. It's at least arguable, and I gotta say, making a deal with that general manager right now does not seem like the worst business in the world.
Not very hard to do, huh?
No. And so that brings us to Quentin Grimes, who has been better than Martin so far this season. Again, it's a small sample size. And some of it, I think, from their perspective, it probably boils down to the fact that they got Max Christie, right? And Max Christie and Quentin Grimes are pretty similar players, right? Yep. And I think Max Christie is signed for a longer period of time. And they said, all right, their skill sets overlap, so let's move Quentin Grimes. There were a bunch of people who speculated that Grimes could be on the move when the Lakers and the Mavs made that trade. That was kind of one of the downstream effects. That was after everybody else was they were getting over the initial shock of Luka Doncic somehow being on the Lakers. It's been a good year for Grimes so far, and I would say, so what are you getting? You're getting better shooting.
Better shooting. Younger player.
Yes, absolutely. Younger player, a little bit more athletic. And if you look at the percentages, Martin is shooting 38% this year, and Grimes is shooting 40%. That might not seem like a big upgrade, but that's why you have to look at other stuff besides the percentages. And Grimes has taken more than 2 times the amount of threes per game.
Easily.
He gets off the shot much, much quicker. He's got nice form, man. I like that shot. Again, he's not a huge player. He's 6'5", but he gets, that he has a pretty high release on that shot, good balance on it. It's a aesthetically pleasing jumper. We'll see if the Sixers can ruin that. They have ruined it before. Let's hope not. But obviously, you're getting a big upgrade. And, we talked about the willingness to shoot that, right? In recent weeks, we've talked about how much Eric Gordon has simplified things for Tyrese Maxey just by standing 30 feet from the hoop and by stroking threes. And he's giving Tyrese Maxey easier passing lanes, easier driving lanes. And Maxey has said this. I believe Kyle asked him in the locker room last week. He said, it's just a lot easier right now. I can make the decision whether to drive, whether to pass. I think Grimes is going to have maybe not the same effect as EG because EG really does shoot that from far. So when he's cooking for 2 weeks, it's a little bit different of gravity and that type of thing. But I think he can help. And he's probably a little bit better with the ball in his hands than Caleb. Now, what might he not be? He's not as big.
Not as big. But is a good defender.
Good defender.
Yes, just not as big.
A bulldog who probably is good at guarding 1s and 2s.
Yes.
But Caleb, you were a little more comfortable guarding the 3s and 4s with. It's not to say that Quentin can't do that on a switch, but that's what you're giving up. And I think that's what Dallas said. We want more of that wing defense. Fine. I mean, look, you have to give something. And I will say, for being better with the ball in his hands, his assist to turnover percentage is like 1-to-1.
He's a scorer.
Yeah.
So in the sense of what today's NBA is, where there's so many wings and all, and we term them as wings. He is a shooting guard. That's what he is. He's a shooting guard. He's not a combo guard. He's a shooting guard.
Yeah. So I think one thing that I really like about this move too, and we're going to get to the age, which is what I really like about it, is that he fits well with Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain. And while you have those 2 smaller players and you, over the next few years, are going to try and figure out what you have in that lineup, how viable is it? You have a guy who can play with both of those guys and take on the harder defensive matchup for a guard, right? And play off the ball as those guys run their pick and rolls. So I like that. I think that's good. I think that is a position that the Sixers needed. And ultimately, again, as somebody who liked Caleb Martin and was a little surprised that the Sixers moved him, I just find it hard to argue with this, man.
There's no argument to this.
So
especially when you look at the contract.
Exactly. And we talked about this earlier this week. The only type of buying that I said the Sixers should be doing is for younger players
Future.
who help you over the next few years, and somebody who can be part of your core, not just for this year, because I don't really think they're going to make a run this year. I would love it if I'm wrong, but like we can look at their record and the standings and we can be more realistic. That's okay though. You can buy if it's somebody who can help you this year, but also moving for the future. Well, Quentin Grimes, he checks that box. I think that is perfectly fair. You could just look at the normal, the normal aging curve for NBA players and say trading a 29-year-old for a 24-year-old when the 24-year-old has been better than the 29-year-old this year. That seems like a decent move. It seems tough to argue. And I also thought, and we talked about this a lot, after these games this week, that the Sixers' most likely move was going to be to stand pat this year. And I think this is good because they made a move, but it also resembles standing pat because you can plug Quentin Grimes in if you get Joel and PG healthy and Maxey. He can play heavy minutes for you this year. It's like taking a step, it's a future oriented move that also doesn't really change what your team is right now. I mean, I get it. Caleb Martin is a more proven playoff player than Quentin Grimes, but I like it.
But you got to play the playoff games to be a proven playoff player.
Yeah.
Simple.
Sure. And again, the Sixers, let's hope they get in the playoffs, and let's hope Quentin Grimes can get his feet wet in that environment. And also, here's the last thing I'll say about this. Because I've been talking about
love the rich breakdown, everybody.
To get a second-round pick here, one that they got rid of in the ill-fated George Hill trade of 2021, which, by the way, I was very wrong about that one.
So was I.
It feels like, oh, God, George Hill was terrible. Oh, it's
awful. I thought it was a good move.
I thought it was a great move. Yeah. Ugh, awful. It feels like found money because for all the reasons I just laid out, this should be a one-for-one swap, right? At worst. I think the Sixers should be giving the pick, if anything, right? The Sixers got the younger player who has been better this year, but for some reason this week, Nico Harrison has just gone YOLO with his asset valuation. It's crazy. I don't understand it. And so now it's just, can you re-sign him? And it's something that we've talked about so far this year. He is a restricted free agent, so it's not the same as the Yabusele thing.
And he will be 25 in May.
Mm-hmm. But it's not the Yabusele thing. You have his full bird rights, so 100%. you can give him whatever he gets, and you're able to match whatever contract he gets on the open market. And I think what Daryl Morey is betting on here is that this summer is going to be a really bad time to be a good role player because the money is just not there for those guys. Even though they are good players, you might have to wait a couple years for the new TV money to kick in for there to be a little bit more of an equilibrium. It's funny, Tim Cato, who's our colleague at DLLS, he wrote a piece. I really struggle with DLLS.
I just say it slowly.
DLLS.
Yes. I'm sorry. I just say it slowly. That's just what it is.
So he wrote today, and he had a back and forth with Kyle, which you can find on our site. Become a diehard, all that good stuff.
$36 today, folks.
Good deal.
Can't beat it.
Next few days, in honor of the birds in the bowl. Quentin Grimes declined an extension before the season, believed to be similar to Najee Marshall's 3-year, $27 million deal. And Quentin Grimes has had a good year. So maybe he has improved on that a little bit. But it's the same thing I'm saying with Yabu, that as a restricted free agent, I don't think he's going to get that much more money than that.
Yeah.
And I think Daryl Morey is saying, okay, if we can get a guy who has a similar contract to Caleb Martin, who is younger and theoretically has a little bit more upside, who also still fits our core players, particularly the two core players who are the youngest, let's make that move. Look, am I throwing a parade for this move? Is it a franchise changer? No, but I think it is a solid piece of business for the Sixers.
Love it, Rich. And you mentioned everything in there with the Yabusele part of it, the Quentin Grimes piece of re-signing him as a restricted free agent this summer. And if the market is so tough, the two free agents that will probably get a little bit of a look, one would be Yabusele.
Yes.
That's one. And two, somewhere down the line, as a rotational piece, someone who you can trust at 6'4", can do a lot of good things, is Quentin Grimes. He now, as you said, is betting that going out there and acquiring him right now at the trade deadline for an older player who all of us liked. This is no knock on Caleb Martin because we loved the move at the time.
I like Caleb.
Right now, I still love him.
Good player.
Still like him. Still wish if he was here, I have no problem with it. But he's not, and what they did, though, was get a player that we also liked. So it's just a matter of your preference of age, measurables, if you will, because they do similar things. And right now, as Rich pointed out, Quentin Grimes is a more of a, especially right now with whatever's going on with Caleb Martin's shoulder, he is fearless and he will shoot that basketball, but a more natural shooter for the shooting guard in Quentin Grimes today than is Caleb Martin. So there's nothing really bad about this move at all. It's not one that's going to knock you out of your seat. And this will probably be
they could still try.
Yes.
They can absolutely still try.
And if they were, like we keep talking about, if the record was flipped and they are 29-19 or 30-18 and they're in the top 3 in the Eastern Conference standings, we're looking at this one saying, Rich, this is a good move for the 8-man rotation that Nick Nurse is going to have when they get to a 7-game series. He may not have the experience, but he's a player that you can throw out there next to Tyrese Maxey and it will work out. The catch and shoot guys that we talk about surrounding Joel Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George. I know you read all this stuff and you heard our podcast a little bit earlier, and the name that I mentioned because so many Sixer fans loved him and were disappointed that his back was injured and he was signed as a free agent with Golden State this summer, since traded to the Brooklyn Nets because he's out for the season again.
Yeah, I like this comp.
DeAnthony Melton. I always looked at DeAnthony Melton as a key piece to their team, so much so where we thought when they lost to Boston last season, when they lost and they did not have him, that, hey, man, if he's in there, they're probably winning these series, if not a lot more games. And at his best, he is a 6th starter. He can plug and play. You can plug and play that guy, and we saw it for enough with the Sixers to know his value. He can start Quentin Grimes. He can be your 6th man. Yeah. He is a very valuable piece. So that was my comparison, my comp. Not necessarily overall because he's a better shooter. He's a better finisher at the rim. But Melton probably has a better defensive profile. But the one knock with his defense is the on-ball one-on-one defense. It's
a little different with Grimes. That's
exactly
what he's good at.
Yeah, Melton was a much better help defender, team defender. Grimes can get you one-on-one, and you could probably ask him to level up a little bit like Melton did as a team defender off ball. So that's where I look at him as a DeAnthony Melton comp for this team. And we've seen it, which is why, again, if you liked it before, you'll probably like it again.
I think that's a great comp, dude. So we'll talk about the dominoes, too, on this one, too. You already got it in the first one, and that's Guerschon Yabusele, and it seems like he is likelier to stay with this move. I'm not going to get into all of the cap gymnastics because I'm going to be honest with everybody.
We'll let Derek do that.
I'm not capable of doing that.
Trade deadline show Thursday.
2 CBAs ago, I was pretty decent. Right. I had a cursory understanding of it. Right now, that's all Derek. That is all Derek. But Kyle, in his reporting, he mentioned and he said, a source who spoke to PHLY on Tuesday said that the Sixers intend to keep Yabusele through the trade deadline, barring a mega offer. So take that for what it's worth. He seems likelier to stay. And the other one is Eric Gordon. I feel like he is much likelier to go. Grimes is pretty much a younger version of Eric Gordon. Go ahead and sell that gentleman to the highest bidder. Let him play for a...
what's the update there? What's the second tweet say? That they told PHLY what?
What do you mean?
You said for a mega trade?
Yeah. The Yabusele will stay here barring a mega offer.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. They're going to have to be bowled over by an offer to trade Yabusele.
100%. Yeah.
And then the second one is Eric Gordon, who is likelier to leave, and thank him for his services and his raising of awareness of dental health and all of those things.
Fantastic. Cavity busting.
He's done. I think a lot of teams will be interested in him for the second round pick price and just go Go let him play for a contender, a team that is more in need of his 3-point shooting. I think he's played very well, but again, it's a little bit what Dallas did to move Grimes. It's like they had Max Christie and they decided, okay, we're gonna pick Max Christie over Quentin Grimes. A much easier call here with Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon is like 13 years older than Quentin Grimes. So that's where we're at, and we also we await for the KJ Martin deal and what he is involved with. But as far as this trade is concerned, again, I don't think it really changes the Sixers' fortunes, but I appreciate that it is a forward-looking move while not completely burning your current team. Look, if Joel gets healthy, and he is playing tonight, folks, he is playing, and PG comes back and he is playing, Quentin Grimes fits with them too. So I don't really think they've taken a step back. You can argue Quentin Grimes might even be an upgrade if he's bombing threes over Caleb Martin. So overall, a nice piece of business. We'll see what it's like in the summer. I think Dallas would argue, okay, we have Caleb Martin signed for the next 3 years after this. There's a little bit of cost certainty there, but I don't know. I think the Sixers are going to be able to bring this guy back.
And we'll have Kyle joining us here shortly from the arena to give us a live report on his reporting of this KJ Martin potential move out tonight due to a pending trade for KJ Martin. So we'll see exactly what that is.
As Jeannie points out, 2 people named Martin who are not related getting traded today by the same team. Has that ever happened before, Devon?
I don't think so. That's unless they're twins and they got shipped out at the same time. No, that is not. Well, what is happening is we head down to the arena right now. This is outside of Dallas. This is probably the biggest place right now as far as wanting to find out what's going on in the NBA, and that is with the Philadelphia 76ers and on the ground at the arena tonight for the Sixers and the Dallas Mavericks game. Weird spot. Kyle Neubeck is joining us, and Kyle, while we had our emergency pod a little bit earlier talking about the Grimes and Martin deal, Rich gave his thoughts to open up the show, but then you just jumped on in there and said, hey guys, get ready to start the show with this news. KJ Martin, was he scheduled to play, which is why he was listed out? He was listed as questionable all day. Was he scheduled to play? And once that happened, he was ruled out because of your reporting of a pending trade. And what can you share with us?
He definitely wasn't ruled out because of me. I did find out that he was ruled out, right? So I'm just going to try to give you guys what I know. There are plenty I can't confirm yet or has not been confirmed by anybody yet. But they're in talks with multiple teams. And my understanding is that at least one of those teams at their behest was like, hey, hold him out of this game. Like there was a possibility that he was going to play. He's been out for, I believe it was about 6 weeks or so, dealing with the foot issue, working his way back, and they got far enough along that the team said, hey, pull the plug, he's out, and actually caught him leaving the arena tonight. So that tells you a lot about how far along it probably is. I wish I could tell you where he's going. I think part of the complication at this point is that in itself is still fluid. It is not clear if the team that they're trading him to is the team that's receiving him. This might end up being a multi-team trade. I think the headline here, though, is that this is, and you guys can roll your eyes, we can have a broader discussion about this later, it's going to be a trade about flexibility. This is not a trade where they're using KJ and giving up a bunch of stuff to bring back like an impact guy. This is more than likely going to be KJ going somewhere to open up some salary flexibility, potentially get under the tax this year, although that is not exactly clear yet. Some of the ramifications of this trade now and later. The team does want to keep Gershon Yabusele in the summer, and so this will have some small to medium impact on that. There is a possibility, although this is not certain yet, that they might convert Justin Edwards to a NBA contract this year, that it's being said that this is going to impact that. So that's about all I have on this for now. I still have not seen, I've seen a lot of other reporters that I trust and respect who have essentially said the same thing, right? Like KJ's out, a trade's going to happen, but nobody really knows where that is yet. So the Sixers and the team they're involved with are keeping this under wraps, perhaps because it's going to be spun into as part of a bigger thing later this week.
I guess I don't have anything. We haven't talked about Joel Embiid's playing tonight, Kyle.
That's
pretty cool, right? And
pretty
so
something.
I brought up Gershon Yabusele as part of that big yarn there, but he's starting tonight. And I think notably, Nick Nurse came out and said at his pregame presser after saying that Joel was playing, after we learned that Yabusele's in the starting lineup, that part of the reason that they're going to start him is that you want to play your 5 best players, and he firmly believes that Yabusele is one of them. And so as they figure out whatever this team looks like post-deadline, as they get guys healthy, I think that's a really important piece to consider, right? That the Yabu, who spent a lot of this season as really just either the starting 5 or a backup 5, is now going to probably play both again and spend a lot of time in the starting lineup, as much time as there is in the starting lineup next to Joel Embiid. So that's about all the developing stuff we have for now. So I think I'll just leave the rest of pregame to you two capable fellas.
Well, we'll talk to you after the game. We really appreciate you jumping in here, man, and sharing that with us. Enjoy the game, and who knows, maybe we'll be doing another emergency pod somewhere along the way, and we have to check in with you, man. Thanks, Kyle.
No problem. And I would say just one last thing. I don't know, but I think that this will probably get done, let's say tomorrow morning or sometime after that. I don't think this is a deal that's happening tonight. So everyone can rest. Rest easy, knowing that the deal is going to happen later and not today.
All right, you got it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Kyle Neubeck joining us live. We'll talk to him after the game as well. Anything new jump out there to you? No. Yeah,
Kyle's doing a good job.
Breaking it down as he always does. Someone in the chat did ask about Quentin Grimes. Can he play tonight? Well, they have to have their physicals. While the trade did officially go through, the pending physicals, even though logistically,
I was kidding about that.
It works, but they just have to go down the hall and swap lockers. But no, he's not going to. Maybe as early as tomorrow, he could potentially play tomorrow for the Sixers once the physicals are done.
That would have been cool if he was at shoot around for one team and he played for the other team.
So they had a video earlier where they were shooting half-court shots, and they showed Anthony Davis, Max Christie out there with them as well. And I didn't notice Quentin Grimes. I mean, the video was kind of grainy because it was on the baseline. They were at half-court, so you couldn't really tell. But who knows? Maybe tomorrow,
I saw some tweets that he was there.
He was there, so. Yeah. Well, maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow as far as that goes. Bree, let's put up the starting lineup since Yabusele is in the lineup with Joel Embiid. The starting lineup tonight, Joel Embiid back at the 5. Yabusele, his natural position. He complained just like Anthony Davis does that he wants to play the 4, not the 5. He's at the 4 with Justin Edwards getting the start over Ricky Council. He, along with Kelly Oubre and Tyrese Maxey. So if you kind of look at this here, folks, and all you do is substitute Justin Edwards with Paul George, that would most likely, barring any real big changes, that's probably going to be your starting 5. Starting 4 with Paul George right there with Yabusele, Quentin Grimes, and others coming off the bench.
Yeah, looks good. Yep. Congrats to Justin Edwards. Another start.
Look at that.
Look at him go.
Look at that. He's a pro,
They're
man.
wearing out that picture of him screaming, holding the basketball.
At this point, they have more. They had a lot of shots on media day that they can decide to go with, but they chose that one.
I do love the differences between them. You know, you got Joel and Tyrese kind of frowning. Kelly giving the blue steel look from Zoolander, and then you got Justin screaming and Yabu smiling because Yabu does nothing but smile.
Yes, he does. Tyrese was always a smiler too. So yeah, man, a little
showing
shocking.
a new side of him. It's all business this year.
Shocking. Larry Love with the super chat. Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga, 24.3, 7.6. That equals, and you still need more if you want to move Paul George, which we know his name has been out there with the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors are calling about everybody. So we might as well mention it. Larry Love sends out that super chat. We appreciate it. What are your thoughts, man?
I would not trade Paul George for that. I mean, they would have to give so much draft equity, but they don't really have good stuff to trade. You
don't like Kuminga? Younger player, not signed.
I don't like the idea of having to pay him with as expensive as he is becoming. I think he plays hard. Like I'm not anti-Kuminga, but
timeline-wise, he fits.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I'm a little worried about what his next contract will be.
Fair. It's not like we said Anthony Edwards. We said Jonathan Kuminga.
No.
Let's get to the right. Let's get to the Bet365 pregame picks. Our pregame pick segment brought to you by Bet365, use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It is never ordinary at Bet365. Let's start off here. I went with Tyrese Maxey, keeping that streak going, man. The streak starts at 25, but it also extends to 28, which is 13 consecutive games of 25 and 28 or more in the game. And that is what Tyrese Maxey has done. That right now, I went with that. That was his starting number at under 28.5. So I said, he's going to keep it going. Joel Embiid.
Unbelievable that Tyrese Maxey, there's so much stuff going on that as well as he's playing,
it's lost.
He doesn't get mentioned once in the first 30 minutes of our pregame.
Right. So I even though with Embiid back, I thought that Embiid would lean on him a little bit more. And by the way, Embiid will probably help him get better looks at the rim tonight. I teamed him up with Klay Thompson with so much going on. He can still knock down a couple of shots, and I think he'll get a couple of looks from Kyrie Irving to knock down 2+ threes. That is my parlay. Rich, what do you have?
I have the new man at the 4, making some threes. It's my favorite bet.
It's a 2-3 off.
We're not getting the best odds, but I didn't really like a lot of the stuff that was on the board tonight. Devon, part of the reason, too, is that I don't know what to expect from Joel Embiid tonight.
Neither do I.
He is often very bad when he comes back from a long layoff, but we've had 2 separate sides of the coin so far this year. There have been 2 long layoffs from him. He was 2 of 11 from the field in that Knicks game that you attended when he made his debut this season, but he missed a few weeks in the middle of the year. It's pretty good against Chicago when he came back. That was one of his best games after a long layoff ever. He wasn't like unbelievably efficient, but I think he had 30 and 10 in that game. We'll see. I mean, as we've talked about, the ramp has been quite big so far this year. He's been ramping during this stretch. So I don't really know what to expect from him. I think Yabu's going to make some threes.
Yep. He'll make some threes, and so will Klay Thompson make those 2. Tyrese Maxey will probably make his fair share as well. Those are our pregame picks from our pregame pick segment, brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, feel pretty good about this one, but hey.
I don't. Come on, man.
It happens.
Feel good?
It happens. They can't lose.
Feel good comparatively.
They can't
feel
lose
good.
to the other guys.
Good is
like they lost to the other guys.
Okay, whatever.
All right, yeah. Well, we'll see after the game. And if anything happens, we'll be here for you, maybe even before our post-game show here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. So enjoy the game.
Enjoy the game.
If
enjoy
nothing
the trades.
We
enjoy
will
everything.
Absolutely be with you post-game no matter what. Hope you can come join us. We're already seeing other things leak out about the league in general. Who the heck knows? We'll be with you, though, later on right here on the PHLY Sixers postgame show presented by Bet365. Enjoy the game.
Enjoy it.
We all silly like the mayor.